There is a number so large it's almost meaningless: $500 trillion. That is the estimated size of the global pension funding gap. It's the largest off-balance sheet debt in human history. It represents a promise made to hundreds of millions of people, the promise of a secure retirement, a dignified old age that is mathematically impossible to keep. You've been told the official narrative. Your 401k, your pension, your retirement accounts are your nest egg, a sacred trust managed by financial experts to grow steadily, waiting for you in your golden years. But here is what nobody is telling you. They are not planning to pay you what you were promised. Not in real terms. They can't. Instead, they are planning to erase the value of that promise through a calculated, invisible demolition of your purchasing power. This isn't a market crash waiting to happen. This is a controlled demolition. It is strategic, it is deliberate, and it is the quietest, most effective form of theft ever conceived. The very foundation of your financial future is being targeted, and the mechanism they are using is something most people believe is designed to protect them: the financial system itself. Your life savings are about to be sacrificed to save a system that is already bankrupt. And you will be robbed legally, quietly, and completely. Most people won't even realize it as happening until they re-standing in the grocery store in 2030, wondering why their $3,000 monthly pension check can barely afford a week's worth of food. In this video, I am going to show you exactly how this works. I'll reveal the mathematical impossibility of the modern pension promise. I'll show you the historical precedent for how governments and financial elites escape these inescapable debt traps. I will expose the hidden mechanism they are using right now, a tool called financial repression. I will lay out the exact timeline for when this bomb detonates, starting now and culminating in a full-blown crisis by 2028. And most importantly, I will show you what you absolutely must do to shield your wealth before it's too late, because this isn't coming in 20 years. The fuse has already been lit. To understand how deep this crisis runs, you have to understand that the modern concept of retirement was born from a set of conditions that no longer exist. It's a ghost from another era. After World War II, Western nations, led by the United States, entered a golden age of economic growth. Birth rates were high, life expectancies were lower, and economic productivity was exploding. In this environment, the defined benefit pension was born. A company or a government would promise its workers a set income for life upon retirement. It seemed easy. You had a huge base of young workers paying into the system, and a smaller, older population drawing from it for a relatively short period of time. The math worked. For a while, but starting in the 1970s, the pillars holding up this promise began to crumble, one by one. First, demographics inverted. People started living much longer. In 1950, the average life expectancy in the U.S. was around 68. Today, it's closer to 78. And for those who reach age 65, it's well into their 80s. At the same time, birth rates plummeted. The ratio of active workers paying for each retiree collapsed. In 1960, there were over 5 workers for every Social Security beneficiary. Today, it's 2.7, and heading toward to second. Real economic growth slowed. The post-war boom was a one-time event. Since the 1970s, growth has been slower and more dependent on debt. Without high growth, the investment returns needed to fund those pension promises became harder and harder to achieve. This created the core of the problem: unfunded liabilities. It's a simple concept that pension managers have tried to obscure with complex jargon. Imagine you promise to pay someone $100 in 30 years. To be responsible, you should probably have about $90 set aside today, invested in something safe that will grow to $100. But what if you only set aside $50? You have an unfunded liability of $40. You are simply hoping that you can make up the difference with spectacular investment returns in the future. Now, scale that up. State and local government pensions in the United States alone have unfunded liabilities estimated at over $8 trillion. The Pension Benefit Guaranty Corporation, the supposed government backstop for private pensions, is itself running a massive deficit. Globally, the number is incomprehensible, with most estimates hovering between $400 and $500 trillion when you include government, corporate, and Social Security-style promises. The promises are the assets on your personal balance sheet, but they are phantom assets, backed by nothing but hope. This is where the secret weapon comes in. The hidden mechanism designed to solve this impossible math problem. It's called financial repression. It's a quiet, insidious strategy used by governments to manage otherwise unpayable debts. It has 2 main prongs. First, you force your nation's savers and pension funds to lend you money at artificially low interest rates. You do this through regulations. You label government bonds as the safest possible asset, a Tier 1 asset that pension funds are required by law to hold in large quantities. Second, you create inflation. Your central bank prints money and works to push inflation higher than the low interest rate you're repaying on your bonds. This creates what's called a negative real yield. If a bond pays you 3% interest, but inflation is running at 5%, the real value of that bond is losing 2% of its purchasing power every single year. It is theft, but it's laundered through the monetary system. The government gets to pay back its debt in cheaper devalued dollars. And the pension funds, the largest holders of those government bonds, see their assets systematically melt away in real terms. They are legally trapped into funding their own destruction. This isn't a new idea, it is the playbook. Let me show you the historical precedent. After World War II, the United States was drowning in debt. The debt-to-GDP ratio was over 110%, higher than it is today. Default was unthinkable. Austerity was politically impossible. So, what did they do? They initiated a multi-decade campaign of financial repression. From 1945 to the late 1970s, the Treasury and the Federal Reserve worked together to hold interest rates low, often well below the rate of inflation. They used regulations to force banks and institutional investors to buy and hold Treasury bonds. For over 30 years, savers and bondholders in America were systematically robbed. They earned returns that did not keep up with the inflation the government was creating. Who won? The U.S. government. They successfully reduced their debt burden from over 110% of GDP to under 35% without ever defaulting. Who lost? The savers. The retirees, anyone who held their wealth in the safe assets the government was actively devaluing. This is the exact same playbook being dusted off right now to deal with the $500 trillion pension bomb. The debts are just too big to be paid honestly, so they will be paid dishonestly through the invisible theft of inflation. If you think this is just a theory, you aren't paying attention. The evidence is everywhere. This is not a conspiracy. It's visible policy. You just have to know where to look. First, the normalization of high inflation. For decades, central bankers treated 2% inflation as a sacred limit. Now, they've completely changed their tune. Federal Reserve Chairman Jerome Powell has explicitly stated they are now pursuing an average inflation target of 2%. This is a green light for inflation to run hot well above 2%. For extended periods to make up for times it was below. The public narrative is that this is to support a strong labor market. The real reason is that they need higher inflation. A steady 2% isn't enough to inflate away the mountains of pension and government debt. They need 4%, 5%, even 6% inflation, sustained for a decade or more. They are openly telling you they will devalue your currency, but they're couching it in academic jargon. Second, the rise of ESG mandates. ESG stands for environmental, social, and governance. It's being sold as a way to make investing more ethical. The public narrative is about saving the planet and promoting social justice. But look at what it actually does. ESG rules are a powerful tool to direct capital. They are being used to force pension fund managers who control tens of trillions of dollars to invest in politically favored projects, like green energy bonds, and to divest from politically disfavored ones, like oil and gas. This is a form of capital control. It prevents pension funds from investing in the very real assets like energy and commodities would protect them from the inflation the government is creating. It herds their money back into approved, often low-return assets, furthering the goals of financial repression. Third, the inescapable push for central bank digital currencies, CBDCs. Over 100 countries, including the United States, are now exploring or piloting a CBDC. The public narrative is about faster day, cheaper payments, and financial inclusion. The real reason is total control. A CBDC moves all money from the commercial banking system directly onto the central bank's ledger. This would give the government the power to directly implement financial repression policies on every single citizen. They could program money with expiration dates. They could block you from buying certain things. And most importantly, they could easily enforce negative interest rates. Your bank account would no longer be a safe haven. It would be a tool for the state to tax your savings directly, without your consent. It is the ultimate trap, making it impossible to escape the system. Fourth, the accounting gimmicks. This is happening right now, in the weeds of pension fund boardrooms. For years, public pensions have used wildly optimistic, assumed rates of return. They pretend they can earn 7% or even 8% per year, risk-free. This allows them to hide the true size of their unfunded liabilities. But as those returns fail to materialize, the holes become too big to hide. Instead of admitting insolvency, what are they doing? They're lobbying to change the accounting rules. The Governmental Accounting Standards Board, GASB, is constantly under pressure to allow for longer smoothing periods and other tricks that obscure the problem. It's like a terminally ill patient bribing the doctor to alter the test results. It doesn't make the disease go away. It just guarantees the eventual death will be a surprise to everyone who wasn't paying attention. Fifth, the global bail-in framework. After the 2008 financial crisis, global regulators, led by the G20, put in place a new system called a bail-in. The public narrative was that this would end too big to fail, bank bailouts. The real story is that it gives the government the legal authority to convert a failing bank as creditors. That means you, the depositor, into shareholders to recapitalize a bank. Your deposits are no longer safe. They are now considered part of the bank's capital structure, and they can be legally seized in a crisis to save the institution. This framework is a loaded gun, waiting for the next crisis to be fired. Now, let me walk you through the mechanics of how these pieces come together to demolish your retirement. Step 1. The trap is set. Your 401k or pension fund, which holds trillions in assets for millions of people, is legally required to act as a prudent investor. Regulations and incentives force it to hold a large percentage of its portfolio in safe government bonds. Step 2. The impossible mandate. The fund is also promising to pay out benefits that require a 7% annual return, but the safe bonds it's forced to own are only yielding 4%. To even attempt to bridge this gap, the fund manager has no choice but to take massive risks with the rest of the portfolio, piling into overvalued stocks and speculative private equity. Step 3. The inflation engine starts. The government and the central bank then execute their plan. They create 5% annual inflation. It's not a sudden spike. It's a steady, corrosive bleed, year after year. Step 4. The invisible theft. Your pension fund's safe government bonds, yielding 4%, are now losing 1% of their purchasing power every single year. The bedrock of the portfolio is actively melting. The fund is losing the race before it even starts. Step 5. The catalyst. A recession, a geopolitical shock, or simply the end of a credit cycle triggers a major market crash. Their risky stocks and private equity holdings that the fund relied on collapse by 30, 40, or even 50%. Step 6. The checkmate. The fund is now catastrophically underfunded. It has suffered massive losses on its risky assets, while its safe assets have been silently eroded by inflation. It cannot make its payments. The headlines scream about a pension crisis. Step 7. The solution. The government steps in as the savior. They will invoke emergency powers to protect retirees, but their protection is the final act of the theft. They will guarantee your pension, but the guarantee will be a lie. They will absorb the pension funds into a larger, federalized system. Your 401ks may be forcibly converted into new government retirement annuity bonds. You will be paid your promised $3,000 a month. But by the time you receive it, those dollars will only buy what $800 bought a few years earlier? The promise was kept in name, but broken in reality. Your wealth wasn't stolen in a single event. It was drained away, year by year, through a perfectly legal, perfectly engineered process. This isn't going to happen overnight. It's a controlled demolition with a clear timeline. Phase 1, 2025, the Great Deception. This is the phase we are in now. The stock market may still be hitting new nominal highs. The media will report on this as a sign of strength. Pension funds will release statements showing their assets grew by 6% last year. Everything will seem fine on the surface. But beneath the surface, the poison is working. Real world, inflation, the cost of food, energy, housing, insurance will be running consistently higher than the official CPI number, and higher than the returns on safe assets. The unfunded liabilities of the pension system will be silently metastasizing in real terms. You will hear politicians start to use phrases like shared sacrifice, modernizing retirement for the 21st century, and ensuring pension sustainability. These are code words for benefit cuts and the theft to come. Phase 2, 2026, the market shock. The catalyst arrives. It could be a debt crisis in Europe, a conflict in Asia, or simply the cumulative weight of rising interest rates finally cracking the foundation of the corporate debt market. A severe global recession begins. This time, the central banks will be trapped. They can't cut interest rates aggressively without risking hyperinflation, and they can't keep them high without bankrupting the system. The stock market enters a prolonged bear market, falling 30 to 40%. This is the event that exposes the pension fund's fatal flaw, their over-reliance on risky assets. Phase 3, 2027, the insolvency crisis. The crash in asset prices delivers a fatal blow to the already weakened pension system. Major public funds, like those in Illinois, New Jersey, and California, will publicly announce they are projected to run out of money within a few years. Large corporate pension plans will follow suit. declaring bankruptcy and handing their obligations over to the PBGC, which itself will be quickly overwhelmed. This is when the crisis moves from the financial pages to the front page. It becomes the #1 political issue. Retirees will protest. The media will demand action. The crisis will be the only thing anyone is talking about. Phase 4, 2028, the reset. With the system on the brink of total collapse, the government will have the perfect excuse to enact its solution. They will announce a sweeping Pension Security Act of 2028. It will be sold as a historic plan to guarantee the retirement of every American. But it will be an act of mass confiscation. The plan will involve federalizing the pension system. The remaining assets in private and public pensions will be absorbed. 401k and IRA accounts will be targeted. You may be mandated to convert a portion of your retirement accounts into new low-yield U.S. retirement bonds that are non-tradable. You will be guaranteed a nominal income stream for life. But that income stream will be indexed to a manipulated government inflation measure that has no relationship to your real cost of living. Your wealth will be trapped, nationalized, and systematically devalued for the greater good. When this happens, there will be clear winners and losers. The winners? The government? They will have neutralized the largest financial threat to their existence without the political pain of raising taxes or cutting spending. The over-indebted zombie corporations will also win, as their pension liabilities are wiped clean and handed to the taxpayer. The financial elite and the politically connected will, as always, be protected. The losers? The middle class. The diligent saver who played by the rules their whole life. The retiree on a fixed income who will see their standard of living collapse. The government bondholder who thought they owned the safest asset in the world. The American dream of a comfortable retirement, earned through a lifetime of work, will be extinguished for millions. It will be the single largest rug pull in financial history. This sounds terrifying, and it is. But hearing this now is a gift. It gives you time. The majority will walk blindly into this trap. You don't have to. You can build your own financial lifeboat, but you have to start now. Here is a comprehensive, step-by-step plan. First, and most critically, get out of the system wherever possible. The primary threat is not a market crash. It is a system reset. The assets most at risk are the ones held inside the system: digital assets and brokerage accounts, 401ks, mutual funds, ETFs, and bank accounts. These are just digital entries on a ledger, and in a crisis, the rules of that ledger can be changed overnight. The goal is to move as much of your wealth as you can from paper assets to real, physical, and self-custodied assets. Second, get out of dollar-denominated debt instruments. This means government bonds, corporate bonds, municipal bonds, and bond funds. These are not safe havens. They are the primary targets of financial repression. They are a guaranteed loss of purchasing power in an inflationary environment. Sell them. The same goes for excess cash. Keep a 3 to 6 month emergency fund, and no more. Cash is a melting ice cube, not a store of value. Third, own real, uncensorable assets you can hold outside the system. This is the core of your lifeboat. Physical gold and silver, for 5,000 years. Precious metals have been the ultimate protection against currency debasement and government overreach. I'm not talking about ETFs or paper gold. I'm talking about physical coins and bars that you hold in your direct possession or with a trusted, private, allocated vaulting service. Gold is a monetary asset that sits outside the political system. It cannot be printed. It cannot be hacked. It is your financial insurance. Your allocation should be meaningful, at least 10 to 20% of your net worth. Bitcoin. If gold is the analog store of value, Bitcoin is its digital counterpart. It is the only asset in the world with a provably finite supply. It is decentralized, meaning no government or central bank can control it, debase it, or seize it if you hold it correctly. Learning how to buy Bitcoin and take self-custody of it using a hardware wallet is one of the most important financial skills you can acquire in the 21st century. It is your escape hatch from a collapsing fiat system. Productive real estate with fixed-rate debt. This is more nuanced. I'm not talking about speculative condos in overvalued cities. I'm talking about productive assets like farmland or income-generating rental properties. The key is to finance them with long-term fixed-rate mortgages. This makes you a beneficiary of the varying inflation that is destroying the pension system. The value of your asset and the rent you collect will rise with inflation, while the real value of your debt melts away. You'll be paying it back with cheaper and cheaper dollars. You are using the banker's own weapon against them. Fourth, diversify jurisdictionally. Do not keep all of your eggs in one nation's basket. The pension crisis and financial repression are global, but some countries are in a much stronger position than others. Research opening a bank account in a country with a strong balance sheet and a tradition of property rights, like Switzerland or Singapore. Consider owning real estate or shares in businesses located in these more stable jurisdictions. The goal is to make yourself a harder target. If your wealth is spread across multiple political systems, you are less vulnerable to the actions of any single government. Fifth, and finally, build your human and social capital. In times of great financial turmoil, your most valuable assets are often not financial at all. What can you do? What skills do you have? Can you grow food, repair things, provide a valuable service? These are forms of wealth that cannot be inflated away. Equally important is your community. Build a strong network of trusted friends, family, and neighbors. When the official systems break down, it is these local, human-scale networks that provide true security. Community resilience is the ultimate insurance policy. Some of you might be thinking, this sounds extreme, like doomsday prepping. Others might think, the government would never let this happen. They'll find a solution. Let me address that directly. They will find a solution. The one I just described to you. They are not going to let pensions fail in name. A nominal default is politically catastrophic. Instead, they will choose the silent, real default of inflation. It allows them to keep the promise on paper while erasing its value in reality, and then blame the outcome on market forces or economic emergencies. It is the politically safest path for them, and the most destructive path for you. And if you think this is just fear-mongering, I ask you to look at the numbers. The World Economic Forum, the IMF, the world's largest asset managers, they all have published reports on the catastrophic scale of the pension funding gap. This isn't a secret. It's a mathematical certainty. It's not a question of if the system will break, but when and how they will manage the demolition. Look at the world around you. You see central banks in Japan and Europe already monetizing debt on a massive scale. You see governments in France facing riots for trying to raise the retirement age by a mere 2 years. This is not a uniquely American problem. It's the endgame of a 50-year global experiment with fiat currency and debt-based growth. The playbook is universal. You are now standing at a fork in the road. You have a choice. You can continue to trust the system. You can remain a creditor to institutions that are fundamentally bankrupt, holding their paper, promise seize their dollars, their bonds, their pension guarantees, and hope that this time, things will be different. Or, you can accept the hard reality of the math. You can choose to become an owner of real, tangible assets that lie outside their control. You can take the necessary steps to protect yourself and your family. You can be a victim of this great reset, or you can position yourself to survive it. The choice is yours. But the window to make it is closing. Share this video with anyone you care about who has a retirement account. They need to know what's coming. The pension bomb will detonate, and by 2028, the financial landscape will be changed forever. Position yourself now, while you still can. Not financial advice. Do your own research.